Focus on Abilities is brought to you by Tier Memorial Herman, redefining rehabilitation, removing barriers, re-enabling independence. In the ILRU Southwest ADA Center, promoting compliance with the Americans with Disabilities Act.
Welcome to Focus on Abilities, a program about issues affecting the lives of people with disabilities. I'm Lex Frieden. I'll be your host for today's program. I'm professor at the University of Texas Health Science Center at Houston, and I direct the ILRU Independent Living Research Utilization Program at Tier Memorial Herman. We have an interesting program for you today and a great guest to talk about some things that are happening in our city. But before I introduce him, let me ask you a question. This is a question we'll answer before the end of today's program. How many people with disabilities are living in the city of Houston now? According to the United States Census, how many people with disabilities are living in our city? We'll answer it before the end of today's program, so please stay tuned to Focus on Abilities. This is Focus on Abilities. I'm Lex Frieden, and our guest today is Jay Stitely. Jay is the new director of the Mayor's Office on People with Disabilities in the city of Houston. And Jay, welcome to the program.
Thank you, Lex. It's very glad to be here. Heard a lot about your program, and I'm honored to be part of it.
Well, we're glad to have you in Houston and glad to have you a part of our community. Jay, you recently took the job in Houston, and can you tell us something about where you were before you came?
And, I've always worked in the field of blindness, and I started out as a rehabilitation teacher, did that for about 5 years, working with newly blinded individuals, adapting to their blindness. Then I went into assistive technology back in the early 80s. That was brand new, starting out with the old VersaBraille 1 tape-based storage. It had a whopping 999 characters of memory. Yeah. And as things progressed, got on into other speech output for Apple, for IBM, the DOS era, if you will, and then moved into, in the mid-90s, I went to work for the Seeing Eye out of Morristown, New Jersey.
Let me interrupt
Sure.
you for a second, Jay. You talked about some technology and you talked about blindness, and I think it's important for our guests to understand that many people who are not sighted have the opportunity to use technology to communicate in writing and to see what's written and so forth. And in order to do that, you have to use some kind of technology, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
And the first device you talked about was the VersaBraille?
Yes.
The VersaBraille, as I recall, had some kind of an optical device on it, and it could translate what the optics saw into a Braille version of that printed document?
No, actually, more what you're describing there is the Opticon.
Okay.
And you're right. You would scan a camera across the page, and that would translate it into vibrating pins that you would hold on your. You'd lay your finger in on a display at 6 columns, 24 rows, and those vibrating pins would be in the shape of the letter as the camera scrolled across. The VersaBraille had a refreshable Braille display. And that technology is still used today, the refreshable Braille display. With now they've just condensed it to being more of a, quote, terminal, if you will, for computers, so that someone can actually read what's on the screen through that Braille display.
So it's actually, it doesn't have any optics in the system. It actually uses the text that's in a computer, right?
Exactly.
So you have to have the text digital before you can use it. You couldn't essentially read a book unless the book had already been scanned and translated to a digital matter.
Exactly, to electronic format.
Okay, and then I guess you have two options, functional options for output. One of them would be a speech output, essentially a text to speech, and the other would be this Braille device.
You're right. That's for totally blind. Now for low vision, they've also developed a variety of software packages that will enlarge the text on the screen, so that somebody could enlarge it typically anywhere from 2 times to 16 times magnification.
Okay.
And that,
well, and for people who have sight loss, but not extreme, you can actually increase the font size on the screen at home, right?
correct. Typically through Microsoft Windows, if it's a Microsoft product, by using a combination of a control key and the roller knob on your mouse, you can increase or decrease programs that are in the Microsoft family.
So, Jay, this is all fascinating. And I didn't mean to get distracted here, but I do think it's important for people to, when you're talking about blindness and people being able to use the written word effectively, they have to understand more about how to do it than just what it's called. Now, you actually know this field very well because you were an instructor in was it a blind school or a program just for blind people originally?
Well, I've worked in a variety of private, nonprofit, and federal programs for training people who are blind or visually impaired, and then I was dean of students at the Tennessee School for the Blind. Okay. Is what you might be referring. But I want to touch back on, since we're making sure people understand about the options for speech, large print,
right,
and refreshable Braille. That's what allows blind people to work. That allows them to work in many different kinds of jobs. And it's important for prospective employers to realize that there is technology that can make it very manageable for a blind person to fit into many office type jobs.
Well, it's true, and I think those of us who work in the field of rehabilitation and disability sometimes even take that almost for granted, but people in the public, particularly employers who we're depending on to give us an opportunity, need to realize that these are available, these technological solutions.
Absolutely.
So, Jay, after some point you wound up, I think, in Arkansas before you came.
Yes, I was Director of Rehabilitation Services and Recruiting at World Services for the Blind.
Which is an international blind service organization?
Right, it's an organization that trains, they have a typical rehab program, quotes typical rehab program, focusing on those living skills type training programs that I mentioned, but they also go on with another program. They are actually the only program in the country that has actual training in a variety of jobs. Assistive tech instructor. They've got they're the only organization that has Microsoft Office training and certifications available to people, and they also have training in desktop support, as well as becoming a network manager, teaching blind and visually impaired how to run a complete computer network system.
Now, Jay, these programs are also available to people who are visually impaired in Houston, are they not?
Not to the extent, unfortunately, that they are. Not unfortunately, I'm glad that there's a program that does offer it, but the fundamental ones, the foundation for it is, yes, programs here in Houston do offer the foundation for it, because you have to really know your speech output programs very well.
So where would a person who's watching this program go to get some of this assistance?
Locally, your options are Houston Lighthouse for the Blind, over on West Dallas, and also through the state. Unfortunately, it's not in Houston, but up in Austin at Crisco Rehab Center has training programs as well.
All right. Well, we'll come back to why you're in Houston, but first we want to take a break. So please stay tuned. We'll be back with more Focus on Abilities and Jay Stiteley. Welcome back. Jay Stitely is our guest here today on Focus on Abilities. Jay, you are now in Houston, settled in as the director of the Mayor's Office on People with Disabilities, and I am curious to know what compelled you to move from a program where you were well situated and very successful to Houston to assume this role, which has a lot of responsibility.
Part of the reason for the move is, as I mentioned earlier, I've been working with people who are blind or visually impaired. And one of the activities I've been doing since '09 has been with the Delta Advisory Board on Disabilities and Delta Airlines. And in that role, I've met many other individuals with disabilities and other types of disabilities. And that has made me realize, yes, there's issues that people who are blind or visually impaired have to deal with, but there's a whole lot more difficult problems that other disabilities have to face. And I saw the job opportunity, and it sounded very interesting to me, and it felt, for some reason, it just felt right in my career that this would be a good opportunity to branch out and to work with and represent other disabilities and ensure that others are getting as much opportunity to do the things that I was able to do working with blind and visually impaired.
Well, it's a credit to you. I mean, you have a background clearly in practice, working with people, counseling at an individual level. You have a background as an administrator, having run a school, and you have some personal experience as an advocate. This job, I suppose, will be different in the sense that you're working for the mayor of the fourth largest city in the United States, and you have a constituency that's in a sizable number. Are you eager to accept that challenge?
Very much so. And I've been here since February 17th, and I knew I was going to learn a lot, and I've learned at least 6 times more than I thought I was going to learn already. And I think it's been good learning, and I hope that I'm going to be able to take my prior experience and build it into making people who have disabilities, ensuring that they're as informed about what's available to them, what their rights are, and also making sure that people realize when you do have rights as a person with a disability, you also have responsibilities.
So you conceive your role as being one to empower people through information and technical assistance, but also to develop some programs on behalf of the city, right?
I'm hoping that that's going to be a good opportunity. Just recently, I found out that there are other people. There's a group of people in my similar position in other large cities, and they meet monthly on a conference call. And it's going to be an opportunity to, first call will be next week, and I'll be able to see what other people are doing, hopefully learn from them, not make mistakes that they've made, that option.
So it's kind of like an association of directors of mayor's office on people with disabilities around the country.
Correct.
Actually, I know several of people who have those positions, and I'm particularly impressed by Chicago. Karen Tamley, who's the director there, in Chicago, has the responsibility for many city programs and ensuring that people with disabilities have equal access to those programs. And I suppose at some point you may well have those responsibilities as well.
Well, and it was actually Karen Tamley who I spoke with that told me about the network of MOPD directors. And just in a brief conversation with her, I heard of several programs that I definitely would like to get started here in Houston. I think that there's a major need for several of those.
So you're talking about employment assistance programs, housing assistance programs, accessibility consultants, and so on.
Exactly. And in fact, we're getting a little start on the employment component. Workforce Solutions as part of the Texas Workforce Board I'm still learning how those kind of work down together, but Workforce Solutions and MOPD are working on an agreement, and it's just about completed to have a vocational counselor at 1475 West Gray, where our offices are located.
Okay, so your offices are located there at the Multi-Service Center on West Gray at 1475 West Gray.
Correct.
And people who have questions about the mayor's office on people with disabilities can reach you there. Is there a number they should call you on, Jay?
Right, 832-394-8255. 0814.
One more time, 832.
832-394-0814.
Okay, that is the current office, the mayor's office on people with disabilities.
That's correct.
And people who have questions can also call 311, I guess.
Yes, and they will give that number. And 311 is always an easier number to remember, but they'll definitely supply that. For computer users, we do have a website, houstontx.gov/disabilities.
All right, we're going to take a break now, Jay, but we'll be right back after this, and I hope you all stay tuned with us. You're watching Focus on Abilities on HTV. I'm Lex Frieden. We're here with the director of the Mayor's Office on People with Disabilities, Jay Stitely. Jay, the office is set up by ordinance, and I have some memories of that being done when Mr. Lanier was the mayor of our city. At the same time, the ordinance was passed that created the Office on People with Disabilities. There was also an ordinance to create a mayor's commission on disabilities, people who were appointed by the mayor to sit on a panel to advise the city and to work closely with the office in that. We still have a very functional and dynamic mayor's commission on people with disabilities, do we not?
Yes, we do. In fact, last night there was just a resolution passed by them to send to the mayor and the council members about the current issues with current concerns about the transportation network companies.
So the commission actually interests itself in issues that the city is considering or working on that affect people with disabilities by any manner, but in this case probably has to do more with the rights of people with disabilities to equal access, right?
Absolutely, and that is anytime the commission hears things that is going to have an impact, either positively or negatively, on individuals with disabilities, they're always interested in it and want to work towards it.
How many members are there on the commission, Jay?
You have 12 permanent members and 4 auxiliary members. Permanent is not private.
Explain the breakdown.
The breakdown of the board is 9 people. 9 out of the 12 have to have a disability. The other 3 can represent or be advocates of organizations with disabilities.
Okay. And the mayor appoints each one of these people. Do you know how long the term is?
It's 2-year terms, and they all part of the board, half the board alternates in the odd year and even year.
Okay. And each one of these are mayoral appointees. They have to go through background checks and have good record. They have to be citizens in the city. How do people get nominated to be in this position?
It can be self-nomination. There's an application on our website, houstontx.gov/disabilities. Look for Houston Commission on Disabilities, and there'll be an application under there, and there's questions and a resumes requested and letters of reference and that type of thing. And the applications come due typically mid-May. They is when applications close.
Okay, and there is a vetting process that extends, I'm sure, through the city's Office of Appointments for several weeks, and I think that's important for people to know that this is not simply a process of having the mayor call you up on the phone and say, by the way, will you show up for a meeting next week? No, and it's taken pretty seriously, and it needs to be, because these are people who are may have disabilities themselves, but they are also representing disabilities for other individuals with disabilities, and that's the purpose, is that this is remembering all persons with disabilities. So I guess that is a challenge. If you're an advocate, your personal experience is what drives you and what you're most knowledgeable about, but in an appointed position where you're responsible to represent others, you have to make an effort to be representative of others by learning about their issues. You described your own experience on the advisory board for Delta Airlines, learning that other people with disabilities had issues that were perhaps in some respects equivalent to yours, or just as challenging to them as your disability is to you.
Yes, exactly. And even within every disabilities, there's a full range of capabilities of people. And unfortunately, many people have multiple disabilities.
Jay, the Mayor's Commission is doing a great job, and you are, given your short tenure here, I think, beginning to establish yourself. So we appreciate that. We're winding down the show now, but before we leave, I wanted to introduce your assistant.
Oh.
And that is...
This is Hagar. Hagar is my 6th seeing eye dog. Everybody always jokes about, well, I did such and such when I was 16. Well, that's actually when I got my first dog, was I was 16.
Right.
I've been using dogs for 43 years.
Now, not all blind people use dogs. It's a responsibility you have to bear.
Absolutely, and it's a choice. Some people don't want the responsibility of a dog, like you say, because when you have a dog, you it's a process of educating the dog. They're trained, yes, but you have to maintain the training. So you get training, and so does the dog. And then for me, it's become a way of life.
So if people see you in Houston, they're apt to see Hagar with you. I mean, they will certainly see Hagar.
Absolutely.
We're glad you're here today, and we're glad Hagar could find his way through the maze down here at City Hall to get to our studios.
Yep.
Jay, it's been a pleasure having you on the program today, and on behalf of our community, welcome to the city, and we look forward to great things from you.
Well, thank you. I appreciate it very much, and I hope I can live up to your expectations.
All right. We'll see you again soon.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you all for watching Focus on Abilities. We'll be right back with a closing comment. Thank you for watching Focus on Abilities. Our guest today has been Jay Stitely, Director of the Mayor's Office on People with Disabilities, and Hagar, Jay's assistant dog guide. At the beginning of the program, we ask you a question, and I promised to answer it before the end of the day's show. So, how many people with disabilities are living in Houston? That is, according to the U.S. Census Bureau. The answer to the question is 756,000. Nearly 1 million people with disabilities live in our city. They work in our city. They take public transit in our city. They're involved in all kinds of activities. They use our parks, they use our shops, they use our schools. And people with disabilities are part of the community. We're glad that we have a mayor's office on people with disabilities in Houston, and we're glad that we have a mayor's commission on people with disabilities. By working with these groups, we as citizens can improve the community for everyone. Thank you very much for watching our program. I'm Lex Frieden, your host, and I hope you'll please join us next time for more Focus on Abilities.
Focus on Abilities is brought to you by Tier Memorial Herman, redefining rehabilitation, removing barriers, re-enabling independence. In the ILRU Southwest ADA Center, promoting compliance with the Americans with Disabilities Act.